Loving ourselves as we love our neighbors. In our scripture today, Jesus named it as the second commandment, equally as important and sacred as loving God. But when loving our neighbor becomes personal, like providing actual physical, emotional, and spiritual care for a loved one, how does a Christian caregiver balance the loved one's multiple needs with his or her own self-care? Rosalind Carter has said there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. It's an issue that has or will affect us all. Whether one assumes the role of a caregiver suddenly or gradually, the bond that develops between a caregiver and a care recipient can be a life-transforming event. It's a time for making special memories, sharing intimate moments and thoughts, enjoying the simple pleasures of life, learning to accommodate life's changes, and sharing dreams that help sustain both the caregiver and recipient during the difficulties and the triumphs. But as a care recipient's needs increase, so does the responsibility of the caregiver. It's commonly recognized that the stress of family caregiving can result in many long-term health issues for the caregiver. These may include depression, intense sadness for the care recipient, sleep deprivation and fatigue, longing for the miracle of normalcy, guilt and isolation, and a weakened immune system which can result in infectious diseases, premature aging, and even death. So remember Jesus' advice to love your neighbor as yourself? It's been said that the best present you can give your loved one is your own good health. I'm reminded of the many airline flights I took a few years ago. The flight attendant's monologue became routine and well-known. In the remote chance of a loss of cabin pressure, remember to put on your own oxygen mask first before you care for others. Yes, of course, I thought, that makes perfect sense. But in the heat of the caregiving battle, it is so easy to forget. When serving as a primary caregiver for my mother a few years ago, as her end-of-life needs increased, I started feeling isolated, trapped, almost suffocated at times. My daytime job was a sedentary desk job, and my mother's care required a very slow daily pace. I thought I had no time for me. But then I had one of those epiphany moments when God got my attention. I remembered the oxygen mask and how I needed to care for myself first before I could care for my mother. So I joined Curves, billed as the convenient 30-minute workout. It felt so good to move my body. I'm convinced that's one of the best decisions I made for myself and for my mother. The physical exercise improved my mood and energy level and helped me to be more patient and caring. When you participate in an activity that's totally opposite from your normal caregiving day, it actually helps to maintain a healthy balance. The caregiving endeavor is not a one-person job. Don't forget to ask for help. If you've ever taken a CPR class, you may remember one of the very first steps after you determine that the victim is unresponsive is to call for help. Help! I need some help here! After teaching CPR for many years, I can say that is the one step that most CPR providers will forget. But obviously, it's a crucial step in the best interest of the victim and of the rescuer. As a caregiver, it's vital to maintain your health with regular medical checkups, eating healthy foods, getting plenty of rest and exercise. It's also important to create a supportive community for yourself. Stay connected to friends and loved ones who are positive and understanding and who give you energy. Talk to a trusted friend, family member, physician, minister, or nurse. Use music therapy, art, and humor. Laughter really is good medicine for the soul. Continue spiritual practices that are meaningful for you. Attend worship services. Find a sitter if needed. Have prayerful conversations with God. Meditate. Keep a journal. Take time off without guilt, and find rest and relaxation that renew you. Connect with nature to remind yourself of your Creator's presence. Self-care is not easy to do when a loved one's needs are many and the journey may be long. Maybe that is why Jesus emphasizes that the only real way to love another is by loving yourself as well. For the caregivers among us, remember to ask for help, from God and others. Take time to celebrate the things that make you smile, and always remember your oxygen mask. Thank you.
So the scriptures today talk about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. And then there's the second part, love your neighbor as yourself. And all the prophets, all the law and prophets hang on these two. I'm not quite sure what that last sentence is about. I'll let you handle that. But this means, as a child, I was cared for by my parents. And I learned how to be able to care for myself as I grew older, as a young adult. As an adult, I cared for my spouse, my children, and tried to use the examples I had seen as an adult, as a child, and as a young adult, in order to become the best caregiver I could. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I saw some good examples of being a caregiver and some negative examples of being a caregiver. I learned through experiences and through making mistakes how to learn how to take care of myself as a caregiver and how not to take care of myself. I learned not to care with control. If it did not include kindness and dignity for all, including the person I was caring for, I was not being a good caregiver. If I was not asked to control, I was not being a good caregiver. I learned not to care when I was hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, unless absolutely required. Linda talked about the balance, and finding that balance has always been something I've had to work on as a human being, along with my spirituality, the other person's spirituality, my own beliefs, and their own beliefs. So I have had to, as a nurse then, learn how also to become a better caregiver as a nurse. And I think one of my best experiences was when I worked in the rehab unit in one of our hospitals here in the community. And what I learned was to teach them to care for themselves. Wow, there's where my light bulb went off. Was I doing that with my family? Was I doing that with my children? Or was I trying to control them and make things flow as efficiently as possible so that we could get through our days? And I began to use those in my practice and throughout my life. I also learned to know my limits as a caregiver. Although I'm not always 100% compliant with those and don't always take care of myself 100%, I'm gently reminded in many ways by the way I'm reacting physically and emotionally. If I'm feeling resentful, that's my check. If I'm feeling angry, there's my other check. If I'm exhausted, no matter how much sleep I get, that's another check for me. I'm not taking care of myself the way God would intend me to do. So I have to do a little self-talk when I'm doing that. As Linda said, we do need to take care of ourselves. Support groups can be supportive, talking to family and friends, talking to someone who's in the same boat that you are. I don't always understand what someone is going through if I've not been through it myself. But if we talk